Here are 5 ways acquisition entrepreneurs can lose $1 million buying a small business. I've worked on literally hundreds of business acquisitions and seen some acquisition entrepreneurs make big mistakes as a result of them losing big money. First way you can lose $1 million buying a business as an acquisition entrepreneur is buying fake EBITDA. Generally, when you're buying a small business, you're buying that business on a multiple of some measure of cash flow. Usually that cash flow number is going to be either EBITDA or SDE, which stands for seller discretionary earnings. Now, on the seller side, you have to think about every dollar that they're increasing their SDE or EBITDA calculation results in them getting somewhere between $3 and $5 back into their pocket when they sell the business. So they're very incentivized in order to increase that EBITDA number. On top of this, most small businesses don't have very good accounting practices. So it's not uncommon for them making mistakes in their accounting that can also inflate EBITDA. So you as a buyer have to have your guard up because the other side does not necessarily have your best interests in mind. We once had a client narrowly avoid this mistake. They were in the process of purchasing a small business, and that small business did almost all of their sales off of a payment platform called Stripe. And with Stripe, something you may not know is that you're able to take out loans against your future receivables. And when those loans come in, they come in a format through the bank feed that looks very similar to a revenue transaction. And this particular seller, whether it being because they were trying to be underhanded or they were just making poor mistakes, their bookkeeper had recorded all of those loans coming in as revenue, which greatly inflated EBITDA. If my client had purchased that business, they easily would have been lighting over $1 million on fire. So if you're buying a small business, make sure that you're doing good diligence and you fully understand that EBITDA number that's being told to you is accurate. The next trap that an acquisition entrepreneur can run into when buying a small business that can result in them losing 7 figures of value would be purchasing a business off of the projections of what that business could do versus buying it based off of the reality of how it's actually performed historically. This is one that we see all the time. When the seller's selling the business, they're going to tell you a story about how there's so much potential in order to grow the business. You can invest in new marketing channels, there's new revenue streams you can go down, you can hire more people, you can expand into new areas. But the reality is the seller hasn't done any of that work yet, and you as the buyer are going to have to come in and actually make that stuff happen. So my suggestion is you don't value the business based off what the seller is telling you can happen, and instead you value the business off of the reality of what actually has been happening historically. The third and potentially most common way that we see acquisition entrepreneurs light millions of dollars on fire is by buying a business with insufficient working capital. When you're buying a business, baked into the enterprise value of the business you're purchasing is a normal level of working capital. And so you either need to have that normal level delivered to you by the seller at closing, or you need to have your purchase price adjusted in order to account for the fact that you're going to have to bring that working capital to the table either through additional equity injection or through a loan from the bank. If you don't do this and you buy a business with insufficient working capital, essentially you're just paying more for the company. If you don't have a normal level working capital accounted for in your purchase price, that dollar for dollar means that you're overpaying for the company. We had this play out in real time with a client once where they came to us after the broker and the sell side had told them that the business really only needed about $50,000 in working capital in order to operate. The client brought us the financials, and after analyzing them, it was clear that this was way off on the calculation, and in reality, the business needed over $1 million in working capital. Once we showed our analysis and were able to push back to the seller, we actually got them to agree that the business needed a much higher amount of working capital in order to operate, and they were able to close on the transaction. Every day for the next year, that client has told us that the only reason that their cash balance was able to maintain after closing was because of that working capital calculation. Had they not done that negotiation, they would have had to inject an additional at least 7 figures into the company in order to keep operations running after close. This is a great real-life example of why you need to nail that normalized working capital calculation when you're buying a small business. The fourth way you can easily light 7 figures on fire when buying a small business is discounting just how important the seller is to the operations of that company. In a small business, the owner of the company is often the CEO, the COO, the CFO, the head of HR, and the head of sales. So you, coming in to replace that owner, need to be prepared to take on a lot of that role, but you also need to understand that it might not be possible to take on everything they're doing. If you're not able to take on everything that they're doing, you need to be ready to hire people in order to replace some of that work. If you haven't factored this into your calculation of the actual EBITDA of the company you're purchasing, that's going to result in you having a lot less cash flow after close because you've had to make a lot more hires than you're expecting to make. To see how this could play out, if you have to replace the owner of a company with a new head of sales and a new head of operations, that's easily going to be multiple 6 figures of cash flow that you're no longer going to have. And at a 3 to 5x multiple, it's easy to see how you can quickly lose over $1 million buying that business. So when you're buying a small business, make sure you're spending some time to diligence just how involved the owner is in the operations of that company. It's very common for a seller to not even understand the work that they do day to day. They've been running that company for 30 years. They live and breathe that business. So they don't fully understand all the things that they do and all the things that are going to need to be replaced when they leave that business. The fifth way I see acquisition entrepreneurs lose over $1 million buying a small business is underestimating just how hard it is to be an operator of a small company. The mistake we see acquisition entrepreneurs make is they believe that because they're buying a business that's been around for potentially decades, that it's going to just magically continue to be around for decades. Well, that's not how small business works. Small businesses need to be constantly pushed up the hill, and you need to be involved in the operations. Otherwise, that small company is going to come back and crush you. Far too often, I've seen people fully unprepared to deal with the challenges of running a small company. And once they are actually in the driver's seat running that business and the inevitable problems associated with small business arise, they too easily throw their hands up and aren't prepared to deal with those challenges and don't have the grit to push through. And as a result, the company flounders and they can end up losing everything. So while yes, buying a small business can certainly help you skip a lot of the challenges associated with starting a company, make sure that you have the fortitude and resilience that's going to take in order to still push through the problems of owning a small business, because acquiring a small business doesn't mean you get to skip those problems. So as you can see, when you're buying a small business, there's tons of landmines that can result in you losing a fortune. It's really important that you're getting good diligence done through the process to make sure this doesn't happen to you. If you'd like some help from someone who's seen hundreds of deals and can help you navigate these landmines, reach out to me. My name is Chris Barrett. I own and operate Midwest CPA. We help you avoid buying the wrong company and then successfully grow the right one.